Record.
Yeah, you're recording.
All right. So basically what I did, I just, now when you get your project tomorrow, it's going to have a lot in there. React's already going to be set up in there. It's going to have an assets folder with an image in it. It's going to have some other things going on with it, but that's it. All of your dependencies and stuff, they're not going to be there. You're going to have to install them yourself. So basically in the state we are right now. So I'm going to add a terminal. We're going to start adding dependencies, and you guys are going to tell me what I'm going to install. So I'm going to start with npm i. What's the first package we need? What do we need to navigate the page route-wise? What package we need for that?
Oh, router React or
Close. It's
what is it?
React router DOM.
Yes,
I can't even
DOM.
spell router.
Yes. Okay.
All right, we're gonna get that one coming. And while that one's coming, we're gonna have to make an endpoint call to this project. We're gonna have to get data from a third-party source to use in our application. What package will we use for that?
Axios.
That's right. Yep. I should have just chained these together. You guys are answering quicker than I thought. Yeah, you can chain together installs. I don't know if you guys have seen that before. Like when you npm install something, you can install multiple packages at once. So if you know what you need for your app when you start, you could list them out, hit enter, and it'll go grab them all. So as soon as this thing gets done, React router, come on, today.
Take a second.
I swear this is half of my developer student life is watching npm run.
Hey, what about opening another console and writing?
I don't know if that would break it or not.
I don't know either. You want to try it?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really. I normally, truthfully, I normally when I start a project, I'll run the install command, and while it's doing this, I'll start typing stuff in the app and things that I want to get ready while it's rolling through its motions. So we'll probably do that. So well, let's think about that while this is going. So we're going to need multiple components for this app. Can you think about the components we're going to need? Think about the objectives that it asks you. It's like right now, we want to be able to display a list of team members. How would we do that?
By looping through the team member data.
You're a little too specific. I'm talking more of the component-based stuff right now. What kind of components would we need? What kind of file structure would we need for that?
We're going to need an app. And the app is going to have two children. It's going to have a user component. It's going to have a form component.
Okay, we're going to start a
like a user list, a user list component.
Yeah, we can have a user list component. Yep. So we're going to start a components folder, and we're going to start adding files. I like to do this right away. I just start adding files for the components I need. So I heard user list, right? So let's have a user list component, user list.js. And always keep in mind for React components, even though they say .js, start with a capital letter. And you'll find that if you start them with a lowercase letter, you'll have rendering issues every once in a while and problems. So just always keep that in mind. All right, we got a user list component. What other kind of component would we need?
Form component.
I heard form component?
Yeah.
Form.js, okay. Let's make another one. Let's see. We're gonna have a user list, but should each user have its own component? I know I like to do it that way.
Okay, let's do a user component.
Yeah, okay, user.
Yep.
User.js. Okay, so we have our form, we have our list, and we have our user component. That'll probably get us a good start right now with doing this at the moment. So, and our packages are done, so we're going to go ahead and start chaining these. We're going to say Axios. We need Axios. We already have React Router DOM.
Let's get Cypress.
You want to get Cypress too? All right.
Love Cypress.
Get Cypress. All right. What else we're going to need?
Do you use React Bootstrap at all?
Oh,
don't think about styling yet. Think about functionality. Styling's always last.
We'll need Yup for validation.
Yep, yes. That we will.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else? What else we got? We got React Router, Axios, Cypress, and yep. Let's start there. Let's let that run. And while that's going, I'm going to start, after I generate these components, I like to just get a base structure in there real quick. So like the user list, I'll come in and I'll just make sure I got import React from, React in there.
Yeah.
My thing must need an update because my extension just quit working. That's awesome. Great timing. So you import React from React, and then we're going to export default function. I'm a big person. I really think all names should be the same when you're dealing with this stuff. So if you name the file user list, the function should be named user list, exported as user list. That way, you never run into that confusion of what's happening. Did I misname something? This isn't defined. Well, yeah, it is. I know I made it. You keep the names the same. As long as they're tied together, you never have that issue. And we always have a return statement in here. This is going to be our user list. I'm just going to start it with a div. And I'm going to put just a p tag in here so my IDE doesn't autocorrect me and say this would be the list component. So what we can see it render when it renders. All right, so we got that one. We're done installing our packages too. So we're going to do the same thing for the form. And export default function. Man, I cannot spell tonight. And this is going to be the form component. And this is going to return where we know we're going to be returning a form tag. And we know that form is going to have a button.
Are you supposed to put the return above the export? I was just curious.
It don't matter.
Oh, okay. All right.
You could write this a bunch of different ways. Like I could take this. This is just, it saves you one word of typing. So you could have it like this, and then down here say export default form.
Yeah, cool. I just used to seeing it at the bottom.
Yeah, I'm lazy. I'm all about the short.
Yeah.
Like truthfully, normally I just type in export like that. Or export. Yeah. And the difference between doing this with export and export default is that when you import it, you have to wrap it with curly braces. But on a lighter note, like if you start using like reusable style components, or you're talking about what Royer was talking about, like building a bunch of functions, maybe embedded in an object in a separate file, and maybe you want to import them individually, this is how you would do it. You type export in front of each one so you can grab them individually as you need them. But for now, we know this is only going to house this one. All right, we got our form and our button, and our user is also going to be import. This is going to drive me crazy. It's amazing how quickly you get used to those hotkeys, and when they're gone, you're like, no. I'll have this, we'll start this one out with an H3 that just says name for now. All right, so we have our components. They all have just some kind of just garbage in them at the moment. So we're going to start setting this up. Now, what should we have? What do you think our first move is? We kind of know the flow of our app. It's going to have routes. It's going to have things darting everywhere. What should we set up first, you think? I can tell you where I go. The first thing I would set up when I started any project like this, I set up router. I get that done and out of the way. So we know we have a series of components. We got to use router. Let's just get it done.
How do you go about to index and put in the router in there?
Yeah. And so we're going to go into index, and it doesn't have to be an index. You can do it in an app as well. Matter of fact, when you start playing with Redux, Redux is going to be an index, and you're going to be putting your router in app. So just don't feel like it's hard pressed that this is the only place that can live, because it can live in other places too. So let's import. Oh, let's see here. Browser router as router from React router DOM. And we'll go down here. I think I can wrap it inside of here.
What does the React strict mode do again?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. They just started using it too and put it in React. I think it might have something to do with TypeScript and the ability for it to be a typed file.
Oh, cool.
I can't remember for sure because they're trying to integrate TypeScript more and more into React as the core library comes around. The ability to use TypeScript if you want, to the point you might not even have to install it as an NPM package anymore. It'll just be there if you want to use it. Almost similar to the way Sass is kind of there in React already as a styling system.
Okay.
Let's see here. Let's load up my settings. So we got router in there. Let's go into app and let's start bringing some stuff in here. What do we need to make router work?
Switch, we need routers.
Switch, route. Anything else you think we need in app at this point? Just those two?
You want to do a link?
I don't think we might. You know what? Let's get link. We might actually. No, I don't want to use a link for that.
App link?
Use history.
History.
Yeah, we'll use history for that because we're not having to match the route to anything for the sprint challenge, so we don't really need the link to carry the params. We can use the history object just to send it somewhere else.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about the use params hook tomorrow. So. All right, so we got those. Probably get some errors. It's not defined. So let's go in here. Let's make our switch. And in here, we're going to make our first route. And in that route, we'll grab our first component. Which should our home component be?
The form.
The form? Okay. You think it should be the form or the list of team members?
What do you guys think?
The form, because that's where you got to start. Then it'll probably add it to the list later.
So you display the form and the list at the same time?
Oh, you could do, yeah, you could do that. Sure, yeah.
What if we want to break them out separately? Like I can tell you that tomorrow for the sprint, the form is going to be in a separate component. You're going to have to navigate to it. So maybe we should set it up that way. Yeah. So I'm going to import, we'll do it this way. We'll put the user list as the home. I'm having to type this. I might end up, it's going to make me mad enough to where I'm going to restart this thing. All right, let's see if we got that. All right, we have our list component. It's showing. Yeah. And we're going to give that a route of our home route. How do we define a route?
2.
No.
Path.
Close though. Path. Yeah, there you go. 2 is for a link. So there we go. We have our route path to slash. All right, let's make another route.
Yeah.
And this route is going to go to our form. No, that's not it. All right, let's bring in our form. Close that up, and we're going to give that a route path of
form or slash form.
Yeah, slash form. Sounds good. All right, so we have that. And to verify that, we could go over to our URL and just check it, slash form. Should show us a form with an empty button with nothing in it, and it does.
Cool.
So we're good. We know our router's working. We got this part done. This is pretty much all you would need for tomorrow. Oh, we want to set up a link. So what they have on the sprint tomorrow is a navigation they want you to set up at the top. So we could set up a navigation as a separate component. You can build it in app. I like to keep them in components just so app gets as little cluttered as possible. So I'm going to make a file called navigation. And in here, I'm going to import React from React. And we're going to export default our function of navigation. And in here, we're going to return. Let's see, I'm going to have a div. In this div, it's going to have an H1 that's going to say that support team, the support team member. And in here, I'm also going to have a button. Oh, I used a capital B. Used to my style components. And this button is going to just say home. We're going to make this our home button. So let's go grab that. All right, and we got it. And always keep this in mind when you're using the switch with route. It wants to see a route for everything inside of that switch statement. So our navigation, that's going to persist for every page in our application. So we do not want that inside of the switch statement. We want it on the outside of it. And we're just going to replace this H2 with the navigation. So now we should see the navigation at the top with our home button and then our list component below it. And now with that persisting outside of the switch, if I switch to form, we still have our main navigation at the top.
Cool.
So we have that going for us. We got kind of a basic layout. We got what we think is all of our routes. Let's make the home button work real quick, which we're not going to have this here because we're going to use that in our navigation. So in our navigation, let's import use history from React router DOM. And then inside of here, how you use the history is define it to a variable first. You say const, I always call it history equals use history, the use history hook. And what that hook does is it basically allows this access to the history object of the browser. And then the next thing you need is just an on-click function in the button. On-click equals raw JavaScript. You gotta do a callback so it doesn't loop. We're gonna call history.push. And this is the home button, so we want it to send it back home. So we're going to verify that works. I'm going to send it over to the form route. Now I'm going to push that home button. And it works. Takes us right back. Everybody with me at this point?
Yes.
So far, so good? All right, cool. So with that, we've got our router in place. We've got our home button working. The next move, I think, would be to build out the form. Let's figure out our form so we know what our data is going to be so we can build out the list. Because right now we don't know what we're going to have yet. So we're going to go in our form component and start knocking some things out here. So let's try and use a little bit of everything that's going to be on the sprint. So in the sprint challenge, you're going to have a name field. So let's give it input. We're gonna have a name. So we're gonna make an input. We give it the name equals name. And we'll just start off like that, and we'll give it a label. And that label will say name. And we'll grab this and pop it up here. And I'm gonna render that form component so we can see this layout. Oh, don't save, just go. Okay, so we have our name input field. Now the next thing that it wants is a drop down. So it wants a drop down with options. Tomorrow it's about pizza size, so it's like small, medium, large. So let's create a drop down menu as our next one. And we'll use it to, we could use the classic role. We'll select your guys' role. Yeah. Student, instructor, something like that. Or you guys got another idea you want to use for that? No? All right. Let's do it. Hold on 1 second here. Yeah, back over here. I always have to look up back to my old projects when I do something I don't use every day. This isn't even the right one. Oh, I know why that's not the right one. Yeah, there's the right one. Okay. That was when I was debugging for a student. I was like, this looks nothing like I did. All right. So let's make our form drop down. I said, you know what? I'm just going to bring up the sprint because I just did that. There we go. All right. So let's do this one. You guys want to use the role?
Yeah.
All right. This is select. All right. Then we're going to have a series of options. All right. Option 1 is going to be what's our first role?
UI designer.
All right. UI designer.
Backend.
All right. I cannot type tonight. All right. Any other options? What else we got? What's that?
Data scientist. Why does it look like I misspelled that? Is it that late already?
Are we missing the
That's
front
right.
Was it?
That's right.
front end
Yeah.
design?
It's just looking weird to me, man. All right, so UI backend, data scientist.
Front end.
All right. Yeah, and we'll probably just stick with that. And we'll say front end. All right, the secret to these select and the options is to give them a value that's going to coincide with your object and how you're going to display things and, check it. I always like to keep them single word and precise as much as I can. No hyphens, camel cased, kind of like the JavaScript way. So we're going to give this one a value. What should this one's value be? Now, this isn't what's going to display on the screen. This is what we're going to be storing in our data.
Can you
UI.
simply put UI?
Yep, we can. So value for this is going to be UI. Actually, I'll keep it all at lowercase UI. And when you have them worded like this, You can also, you're gonna have to run conditionals and display it by what the value is, which we'll go over that a little later. It's a little bit of extra work, but not much. Value for this one is going to be, just call it back end. Yeah, that's good. All right. This one's value is going to equal, we'll call it DS. And this one's value equals, we'll call front end. All right, so we got our drop down in there now. You can see it's kind of working. We can click on it. It opens up, shows us everything. Notice that the first value is like always your default value. That comes into play for form validation and your initial values of your form. If you're gonna have, when you use one of these drop downs and it has like that first value, make sure you set that value to your initial form values. So it's not an empty string. It eliminates some UI problems when you do that. In case somebody's filling out your form and they see UI designer, well, that's what I am. When they submit the form, it'll be an empty string, even though it says UI designer in the text box. Just a little heads up on that one.
Can we add another option saying that select a row and put the value as nothing and
The
disable
default?
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Option. Oh. Select a row. All right. However, it's still not going to change that. The difference is when you click on it, now it says select a role at the top. Just keep that in mind too. All right. So we have, let's see, select name. All right, let's give this option a name. How do we want this to be stored in our data set? So when we select an option and our object comes across, it's going to be stored by this name. So we'll just call it role.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Why isn't the select the role not the first thing shown?
Because it's disabled. Yeah, so like if you take the disable off of there,
Yeah.
select roles first.
I'll just keep it like that.
I see this a lot, and normally what people do that is so when you click on it, it kind of gives you like a little head, like fake heading at the top. Yeah, select a role. That's a reason why you see that a lot of times.
I'd rather have it the other way so people actually have a reason to click and they don't fall for, oh, it has what I already am, UI design, like you were saying.
Yeah. Let's give this a name. Let's just name it role. That's where we're going to store it. That's going to be the key in our object for our data. The role will be like UI, backend, DS, or whatnot. So we have it named. We don't have any value set up because we don't have any state, but we're still working on building our form. So we got the name input covered. We got that. The next thing that's on the sprint challenge is 4 check boxes, a minimum of 4 that they want you to watch. So let's start building some check boxes here. What can we make our checkbox values be? We're gonna make a label. We'll have our first one, input. Let's see, this is gonna be a type of checkbox. And we'll give it a name equal to, what should we have in the checkboxes for our roles?
Like different ages?
Yeah, I don't know, that could be sensitive. Some people like me that's older than dirt, you know?
Okay.
I got an idea. How about languages? Programming languages. You can select how many languages you know. Sound cool?
Okay.
Let's do that. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna start with let's start with JavaScript. The language nobody knows. And in our label, we're gonna call it JavaScript. With a little colon, and why not? Now I'm gonna do this. you probably should do it in the sprint. I'm gonna copy and paste these. I know I need at least 4. So I got 4 checkboxes with the name of checkbox. The second one, I'm gonna name
Python.
Python.
Yeah.
All right. I need to make that lowercase actually. Don't like any capital letters in there. All right. What's another language?
C++.
C++. All right. C++. All right. And one more.
C#,
CSS. Oh,
What's that?
C#,
C sharp. All right. C sharp. And we got no PHP people in here. No PHP love. I'm just gonna put it in a C for the data set reasons. Make it a little easier.
Nobody likes WordPress.
What's that?
Nobody likes WordPress.
Yeah, right. All right, so we should have a label with checkboxes, and we have them, and they probably kind of work right now. They'll go on and off and stuff, but they're not working in a React way. They're just working just in an HTML way at this point. So we have all that set in place with our labels. We have our checkboxes. Last thing the sprint's going to ask for is a text box, and in here we'll make a label for it too. I don't know if we're going to get to styling tonight, to be honest with you guys, but we're going to try and get all the functionality for tomorrow going. So we'll label this for the text box. We'll call this the bio. That sounds like a good idea.
Styling's the easy part.
What's that?
Styling's the easy part.
Yeah. And the input type for a text block, a block of text, is just text. And we'll give it a name equal to bio.
or are they looking for like a text area or just a little bit of text?
Yeah, text area. It said text block in the thing. It wasn't very specific in the MVP of the project. Like, let me double check it and make sure.
If it was block, I would think more like a text area maybe.
Yeah, it says text input is all it's asking for.
Okay.
So I think you get away with each one. You can do text area in here, I suppose. So see what we get. All right, so we still have that, and then we have a button. We're gonna make this is gonna be our submit button. So we're just gonna call it submit. So that way it's got a name to it. All right, that's everything for the form that's required for the sprint. Now we just gotta make it all work. We're gonna start laying out our form. We have our form built. Let's make our form work to where it's handling data statefully the way we want it to. And then after that, we can start making our endpoint call and display members to the team. And then lastly, you'll put the validation in and then do the testing, which hopefully we get to all that tonight. So let's make it work.
Hey,
Go
Chris,
ahead.
what's the plan for, like, how long are we going for?
I got an hour left.
Okay, all right.
All right, so let's go ahead and bring in uState. We know we need that right now. All right, we're gonna make our form state. We're just gonna start with that. So we're gonna say const form set form equals uState, and we're just gonna keep it empty. Now up here, we're gonna start setting some things up. So we're gonna set up our initial form value. This is the object that we want it to look like, with just empty values in it. So we know we're going to have a name field. Let's see, we have a role field. And I forgot my comma. All right, we have, now remember, we got to have a name for each checkbox. That is key. Each checkbox has to have its own name in the object. So we're going to have one called JavaScript. And that one's going to default to false.
JavaScript.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah. All right. Then we have Python. And that one is also going to be false. And we're going to have, let's see, I'm just going to call this, man, how am I going to name it C++? Will it lose its mind?
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to try and run an operator on it.
You could go for the string.
Yeah. C++. And that's going to be false. Although it's yelling at me about that Y. That should be good. Unnecessarily computed. I know I don't want it to. Durr.
Why is fighting you about it? Maybe the brackets are on the way.
Yeah, it's got brackets already. The square brackets should allow a string. I'm going to try wrapping it in an object, but it's still mad about that because it doesn't have a value pair. You know what? Just for the sake of time, we're going to rename that.
Sure.
We're going to call our form instead of C++. We'll pick a language.
What about just write C plus and plus?
Yeah, we're not going to get that carried away.
CSS?
CSS works. Yep.
Yep.
There we go. It's now CSS. So we're going to go back into app. This is going to be CSS. And then our last one is going to be C. And that'll also be false. And we got one more that is the bio. So bio, and that starts out as an empty string. There's our initial form state. That's everything we have in our form to display. So we're going to come down here. We're going to make that our default value. Initial form is now our default value. So we know that's in our form. Let's start passing props. We're going to finally start passing our first props of the night. So let's see here. We got to reference this form. We need to know what this is to be able to set our values in our inputs to the proper thing. We need to know what that value is. So we're going to pass that into our form. Form equals form. So we have that as a prop. Let's see here. We go into form. Anything else we're going to need? Trying to think right offhand. Where did that go? Oh, there it is. Like losing stuff everywhere. All right, so what other props do we need? The other stuff we haven't created yet, so we're just going to start with this. So let's start integrating form. When form comes in through props, we just passed it in. And always think of props. Props is nothing more than an object. And what you do when you're setting props is like an app here. When you see this equal sign, almost think of that like a colon for an object. Anything to the left of the equal sign is your key. That's what you're naming it. Anything to the right you see in the curly braces, that's JavaScript, and that's the value. That's the value that you're assigning to that key in the object. So if I were to go and like console log this form or props real quick. You'll see in the console, props is just an object. And it's got a key of form, and its value, because we defaulted it to it, is our initial form state. That's our value. So when you're confused with props, it's just an object that we're passing down, and we can assign our own keys and values in that object, and then call them in the next component. So just always that helped me a ton when I was going through. Props is just an object. Once you figure out how to navigate the object, it's all there. So we have props in there. We're going to start, I'm going to start a destructure chain because I know we're going to need more than one prop. Normally, if it's only one, I wouldn't bother, but I know we're going to need a lot more. So we're going to destructure form out of here. And basically what that does, all that does is set this form value right here to this variable form. It's just getting rid of the having to type in props in front of it, props dot. Now we can just say form whenever we want to call it. So this input name here, instead of name, we want this to be a controlled input. So we're going to give it a value, and it's going to equal the form dot name. And where I'm getting that from is the form object. I have a name key. That's what I want to reference for this. And that name key directly coincides with the name of the input. If you keep all of them the same, it's very important to do. Everything controls pretty seamlessly. So we're going to do the same thing for our select option now. We're going to give it a value, and it's going to equal the form dot, what did I call this? Form dot role. All right, and then we have options down here in our select. That's the UI drop down, so it'll be that. And now we have the checkbox, and we have to do this for each one of these checkboxes. We're going to say value. Is it value? All right, is it value or checked? I'm pretty sure it's actually checked. Yeah, it's not value. Checkboxes, it's checked.
Yes.
Checked equals form.checked. And right now we know that value is false, so it's going to be unchecked. And I'm going to show you guys when I get done with this. All right, this wouldn't be form.checked. What am I thinking? It's form.javascript. I'm going to show you guys how when I do this with the checked value, you can't check the checkbox anymore. I'm just going to drop all these down. And this one's going to be Python. The next one's going to be CSS. And our last one is going to be C. All right. So with this, you'll see that when I go to click on this, I'm sitting there clicking away right now, and it won't light up because its default checked value is false by default in our initial form. So it will never light up until that value gets switched to true, which we have to do with an onChange command and do it through stateful logic. That's where that controlled input comes in. And that might be why your checkbox isn't lighting up, by the way. So just might look into that. Make sure you're controlling it statefully. And the last one is our input. So we're going to give this a value equal to form.bio. So now our form is directly tied into state. Now we got to have a way to manipulate state, set that state up, to change that state. So we're going to create a helper function in app.js to do exactly that. And I'm going to keep the naming pretty simple. It's const handle change. So this function is basically going to handle, let's see, it's going to take in the event. It's going to handle any change the form makes, including the checkbox. It's going to handle them all in one shot. We're not going to make separate functions for the checkbox. We're going to do it all right here. I'm going to show you guys a really easy way to do it. So handle change is what we're going to use to manipulate this state right here. And how we're going to do that.
Manipulate what state? I'm sorry?
The form state.
Form state, okay.
Yeah, the form state is what's displaying all of our values on the form. And the handle change is going to be tied directly into the onChange of each one of these and set the values of the object in here to the actual values the form has.
Okay.
So the first thing we want to do is we're going to I'm going to use a thing called e.persist. Sometimes you see it not used, sometimes you will. I normally throw it on every handle change function that has a checkbox because I've had it like a 50-50 shot without it with a checkbox. It throws an error. It'll randomly say like name is undefined, and it's like I know name's defined. I can see it defined. But what it is like it's like a small delay in the clicking of the checkbox to the re-render. It's just hard to explain, but I would just make it a good practice to put e.persist on your handle changes if they have a checkbox involved, and then you don't have to worry about it. So the next thing I'm going to do is I have direct access to the event when I do this because I'm going to tie it in on the onChange. So that E stands for the event. So I'm going to check. We know that the checkbox uses a different value, right? It uses checked rather than value, right? So we're going to verify that by what's coming in. So we're going to say e.target dot type. We're going to check the type of the target that's coming in. And if that equals checkbox, we're going to run a certain type of logic. And this is a ternary operator. I don't know if you guys have seen these before yet or messed with them a little bit. I'm basically
No.
writing an if-else statement with a question mark and a colon.
Is that 2 equal signs or 3?
That's 3.
Okay, it's a little hard to see.
I can try and make it a little bigger here.
That'd be nice.
How's that? A
Yeah.
little bigger? All right.
Mhm.
So we're going to check to see if the type's checkbox. And if the type is checkbox, we are going to set form, which is our form state that's up here. We're calling our setter now to set this off the initial value. We're going to spread out the initial form. So we're spreading out what already exists there because we want to access just one of the little keys inside. We only want to change one of them. We don't want to overwrite the whole thing. And we're going to set it to, in square brackets, e.target.name. And because we're checking to see if this is the checkbox and this is the true statement, so when you say if the e.target.type is strict equal to checkbox, after the question mark, if that is true, so if this is a checkbox, this is what we're going to modify. And we're going to say e.target.checked. So rather than using e.target.value, we're using the checked portion of the checkbox. And that is going to set our Booleans from false to true and true to false, because that's how a checkbox tracks that true false value, is through the checked portion.
I had a quick question. Can you quickly just go over when you would do the spread form thing again?
Yeah, so like let's say we have this object sitting right here that's in our form, right? And if I want to just change one part of this, I just want to change that C. That's all I want to change, the value of C. I want to leave everything else the way it is, or make a copy of the way it is. I don't want to overwrite anything else. To do that, you spread it out. And when you spread it out, what this does is it makes a copy of everything in here. And then I define just one portion of that. So when it e.target.name, depending on what target I'm typing in here, that's what it's going to overwrite. So if I'm typing in name, let's say, it's going to overwrite this name with whatever comes in here. And then it's going to give it the value instead of an empty string, whatever that value is, while leaving everything else alone. So that's why we spread it out. If you wanted to just completely overwrite a whole object, you wouldn't spread it. You would just, just put in there what you wanted to put in there at that point.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem. So our else statement is also set form, but this is going to be like our normal setter. So we're also going to spread out form, and we're going to say,
It could get wet. It could fall in the.
We're going to see e.target.name again, except this time it's just going to be the normal e.target.value. And just like that, that is I forgot a period. I was like, why is it yelling at me? It should work. There we go. And that one function right there will control all of your stateful logic, checkboxes included. Just in one, what is that, 4 lines of function? It's a lot easier than writing a handle checkbox function and doing all this other stuff when you can just use basically an if-else statement to see if the type's checkbox and you're good to go. So, and we're going to verify that. We wrote this handle change function, but right now it's not doing anything. We got to tie it into our form. So I'm going to come down to my props list here. I got to give that prop to my form. So I'm going to say handle change equals handle change. Now when we go to my form, I have that as a prop. What's it yelling at me about here? A checked prop to a form field. It's supposed to have that. Did I type that in wrong? I messed that up. No, checked is supposed to be good. Why is it mad about that? Oh, value type in a prop of a form field without an on change. Okay, that's why it's yelling at me, throwing me through a loophole. Yeah, I know. I haven't put the on change in there yet. All right, so we have our form. Let's grab our handle change function out of our props now. And all we have to do here is the same line over and over again now. We're just going to say on change equals handle change in curly braces. And once you have that, you just copy it. And I'm going to drop that on every input I've got. Normally I would say if you're copy and pasting, you should have a helper function, but you still have to put the on change in every input anyway. So it's like, it's just redundant to even make the helper function at that point. So we'll put it there. We're going to put it on a Python. We're going to put it on CSS. We're going to put it in here. And we're going to put it in our bio and save it. Hey, look, all my errors went away. And now we have that, and we're going to verify that works now. So in our console log in app, we're going to create one that we're just going to console log form again. All right, we're going to see what our form value initially is. And you can see that object popped up right here. Come on up here. We have the object that has our default values in it. It's got our bio empty, everything checkbox wise is false, our name's empty, our role's empty. We're going to start typing in this form. We're going to see if it all populates like we want it to. So I'll start with my name. I'm going to go Chris. And look, name became Chris. We know that's working. Now we're going to try and select a role. The select a role default actually worked. I wonder if it just needed a re-render. Royer, I think you might have been right on that. I'm going to go with back end. And it did. It populated back end. Now let's start, let's select the languages I know. I know JavaScript. Oh, JavaScript went to true. That's working. I know Python went to true. I know CSS. And a little bit of bio is I like testing. And we're going to verify that went. And everything works. Look at that. How cool is that, right? You're getting the true or false on your checkbox. They're checking and unchecking like they're supposed to. They're using a controlled input through state, and we did it with very minimal code. Any questions to this point? No?
You
All right.
have another checkbox?
Yeah, I got one right there. C#.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't know C#, so I didn't click it.
I had a quick question. So today, when we went through the project, one of the files that he went through was a form schema.
Uh-huh.
And that's where you put all the yep stuff?
Yep.
Okay. I didn't know if you were going to go through that or not.
I'm gonna try and get there. The form schema, I normally don't put in a separate file. I normally just type it at the top like I did for my initial form. It's normally small enough it doesn't matter, but you could put it in a separate file and just import it in. It does the same thing really. For time's sake, we'll probably just keep it in the same file. But we're almost to that point. So we have this done. The next thing we want to do is before we start validating stuff, we just want to make sure it all works. So we're going to test to make sure this works. So the next move is we have to update this data and display it to the screen is what it eventually wants. For the sprint challenge, we're going to make an Axios post call, and it's going to post the data on the screen to like app or like a card list or a card container. In our case, I'll probably just keep it at one team member at a time, just so it's more like the sprint rather than making a bunch of cards. So in app here, we're going to set another state. We're going to say const, let's say user, set user. That's going to equal use state. and we'll set it just to an empty array at the moment. We can get rid of our form console log. We don't need that. We're going to pass user as a prop to the user list. User equals user. So we have a prop in the user list. Now that's a user. We're going to go to our user list, and we're going to import our user card. Or I think it's just called user. From user. And in here in this div under this list component, I'm just going to change this to, I'm going to call it an H3. And we're going to say team members. And then right under that, I'm going to use curly braces because I'm going to map over some props. So I'm props here. I have a prop I sent in called user. And that user has an array in it. And eventually it's going to be an array of objects. That's where we're going to map over. So I'm going to say props.user.map. And in that map function, I'm going to have each item, which is an object. So each object inside of that array, I'm going to map over and I'm going to return a user component. And in that user component, I'm going to pass that item, which I'll just call it a user. And we'll keep our naming the same so we're not confused. So I'll go change this item because that's what it represents. I'll change that for user. So for each user, we're going to return a user component and passing that user as a prop. And we can go ahead and build out our user right now. So we know we're getting a prop here. We know we're going to get, it was called user. So we're going to set up we're going to destructure this because we got some things coming out of here. So we're going to have a name. We're going to have a role. We're going to have JavaScript. We're going to have Python. We're going to have CSS. And we're going to have C, which is basically C#. I'm going to set that equal to props.user. Because remember how I said props is an object? Well, we named that props object, we named a key inside of their user, and its value is all that stuff we just listed. So we got to chain it down a little bit. Props.user is equal to all of this. And that saves us a lot of type because now we can have this H3 with just some curly braces with a name. And then we can start laying out some other things. And I'm going to show you guys how to conditionally render the checkboxes too. So in here, I'm going to have a p tag. This is going to be the role. And I'm going to have some curly braces and give it the role. And then now I'm going to start defining JavaScript, the raw JavaScript in here because I'm going to say JavaScript and 2 ampersand signs. And then I'm going to have a p tag. And in this p tag, it's going to say, actually, I could just do it this way. If JavaScript is defined, I'm going to have it say JavaScript. Because that's the only value it's going to be. And this JavaScript represents a true or false value. And what those double ampersands do, they check to see if JavaScript is defined. So if JavaScript's false and I didn't check it, this is never going to show up. It's not even going to try and render it. It's going to pass right over it and move on to something else. But if JavaScript flips to true, it's going to display a p tag that says JavaScript. And the reason why I'm doing it this way rather than displaying the actual value is because our values are set to true and false for this. So we want to display the actual, whatever name we want to display when this happens. So I got JavaScript. Let's see, and we'll just set up 4 of them like this. So we got another one that's Python, ampersand. We'll make a p tag, and we'll call this Python. And make another one called CSS. And one more. That is C. And that'll be a P tag. And we're going to call this, I think if I just do it in backticks or quotes, or we'll do it this way. I'm worried about that sharp emblem. Ticks, and we'll go C sharp. All right, and then I'm just going to add a little title up of it. I'll make it like an H4. I'm going to say this, we'll call this known languages. And then the last thing we have to add is our bio, which, let's see here. I'll give it another H4, just as a separator, call it bio. And then right below that will be the P tag, which will display our bio, which I forgot to bring in. So let's bring that in. All right, so we have that all set up now to display our data when it sees that. And then we might see a bunch of errors when this hits. We might not, but we have like a boilerplate set in place to see how it reacts. So we got our user list user. It's mapping it over for each user. We've got that set up. We got app set up. Let's go to our home route. Nothing broken, nothing's there because we don't have anything there yet. So we probably, since team members is home, we should probably have another button there, to be honest with you. Let's do this. Let's go to navigation. And we're going to copy this button. And we're going to make this say add member. And this member is going to push to form. So we click add member, we go to our form. So let's go back. We got a couple things to finish on our form. We have a button down here to submit, but it's not doing anything. So we need to find a way to submit this form. And we're going to create a handle submit function up here in app. So const, yeah, we still got a half hour. I might be able to get to it all. I'm trying, guys. It's a good thing it's recorded because I'm sure I'm going really fast right now. And we're going to have an E. And the first thing we do on any submit function, you want to prevent the default. That's why I passed in the D, because you don't want the page to refresh. And the main reason behind that with React is you lose all your state when that happens. Yeah, so if you're putting stuff in state and the page refreshes on you, it's gone. So that's the whole point between single page applications, keeping track of application state as it interacts with the API. All right, and in here, I'm going to, let's make our first Axios call. Let's make an Axios call. So let's go get Axios, import Axios from Axios. Why did you do it that way? All right, we got Axios. We're gonna make an Axios call. So in here, we're gonna say Axios get, or I'm sorry, .post. We're gonna post to recres_in, which is https://recres.in/API/users. I believe is it user or users? Let me double check that. Where is? Yeah, it's users. All right, and the second argument for the post is the data we want to send. So when we call our handle submit, we want to send our finished form data out. So the easiest way to do that is type in form. Now we're going to send that data. .then is our success promise response. So we're going to see what that is. We're just going to console log it to start. And we also want to set up our error in case we get an error in the network. And this will tell us our error. So now we have our function. We got to pass this function now as a prop to our form. So our submit button can fire this off and do what it needs to do. So we'll go down to our form and we'll say handle submit equals handle submit.
Yeah.
And we've got our prop form. We know it's there. We just passed it. We just have to add it to our destructured object. Handle submit. All right. And then the next thing we do, the easiest way to do this is submit is part of the form tag, but you want to set the button type to that in case you end up with multiple buttons in a form. You only want one button to trigger a submit function. You don't want all those buttons to do that. So it's just good practice just to give whatever button that's going to be your submit button the type of submit. And what that does is it tells that form tag that I'm only going to run the onSubmit function if that specific button's clicked. If there's 10 other buttons in this form that do different things or toggle things, I'm not going to submit the form until this specific one gets hit.
Thank you.
So in form, we're going to call onSubmit in the form tag. So onSubmit in the form tag is just going to do handle submit. The function, the helper function we created in an app we passed down. It's just going to call that. And we're going to verify that works with our console. We have everything set up. So if this is successful, we should see the object. And sure, we'll just type in some garbage and submit. Oh, and it came back. Look, we have a success, 201. Let's see what it looks like. Looks like res.data is where it's at. And it's an object with an ID, a created app. We got all kinds of cool stuff, didn't we? So, and we could, I always like to do this too, just to verify, to break down when you get a big object from a call. You could chain it down in your console log just to verify that you're getting what you want, and just redo it again before you start setting it to state.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's our object. That's what we want to set the state. That's it.
And that's actually Axios that does the Raspberry, the response into data.
Yep. Yeah, so basically what Axios is doing is it's creating the HTTP request. It's converting it into a JSON format. It's doing a lot under the hood, and it's sending your form object there in JSON format, because the way we have the object set up is not. It actually takes all those key value pairs, wraps them all in double quotes, comma separates everything, and ships it.
Yeah.
And then when it comes back, if the API, like the backend you're hitting, is saying, yes, I have that data, I'm going to send you a successful response with some data back, that's considered resolving the promise in Axios.
And when that Postman, so we see the difference
of what the object looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry for cutting you off.
Let's see here. Make this a post. Let's see here. API/users. The body. Let's click that off. We don't need that. Close that. It's going to be raw JSON. Okay, so what we're sending, what Axios is converting that to is an object that looks like this: name, colon, and our value would be like Chris. But you notice how everything gets wrapped in double quotes? That's what Axios does for you. By taking that regular object, it's converting it into this. So I'm just going to add just a couple real quick. I'm not going to mess with all the checkboxes or anything. And JSON format, everything is a string except for integers and Boolean values, true or false. Anything else is a string. Key or value pairwise. So bio is, hey, I am here. And I'm going to send this, and then you're going to see the response. This is a response we got back. We got back the response in JSON format. It's got a string with name, Chris, basically everything I said, except it sent me an ID, 391, created that. That's the same thing that Axios just did. It took our object.
Sorry.
What's that?
Where's the ID coming from?
It's automatically generated by the API.
That's throwing me off. How's it doing that?
Get used to that because that's like the way. Like when you start dealing with APIs and everything, you don't generate your own IDs. The API does because it uses those IDs to keep track of data in its database. So you can't automatically assign an ID that might already exist in that database. It assigns one for you and sends it back. So be prepared for that. You'll never be generating your own IDs. I mean, you see UUID come into play, but that's more or less just for like playing on the front end only when you're trying to sort things by ID. Your IDs will like 100% of the time pretty much come back from the API call. So, all right, so we have that. Let's set that data to state. We're gonna say set user. We want to use an array. We're gonna spread out the original user because if there is a user there, we don't want to overwrite it. We just want to add to it. And I could put it here and say res.data. If I do it this way, my list of users, it gets added to the bottom. But if you want that user to populate the list on the top, all you have to do is switch the order of these two. You can say this way and say res.data and then comma, you spread out the user. Then it'll put whatever your new data is at the top of the list.
Oh.
So it's and in this case we're only ever going to get one because we're actually no, we probably get multiples with this the way we're doing it statefully. So let's try it. We're going to go Chris. We're going to select a role. I'm going to go back end. I like these three. Bio is TL support. All right, I'm gonna click submit. We're gonna see what happens. All right, it came back, but you notice we got one thing in our UI that's a little funky there. Did you notice that? We submitted the form. Not only did the form stay populated, but it didn't send us anywhere. It didn't send us to the list. We don't get to see what happened. So let's fix that real quick. We're gonna go in our form and our on submit function here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do it in app. We're going to bring in history in here because that's where our function is. New state. I don't want it there. I want it out of this one. We're going to bring in use history.
Why do they use brackets when assigning the Axiom data?
Brackets when assigning what?
If you go back to where you were assigning the data in Axiom, I think it was in the app. When you're running the submit.
Oh, in the submit here or here? There.
Set user, you got you made that into an array.
Yep.
Why?
Yeah, it's an array of objects basically because we get this back. This is an object. It looks just like this, and then our original user, which is actually our default user sitting here with nothing in it, is also an object. So we're just going to be adding objects to that array, and as it fills up, we've got our user list is mapping over that array and creating more and more cards.
I don't get it.
What's that?
Because I don't get it.
Get why it's an array?
Yeah, because
Right.
we didn't start it with an array. We started with an object.
Yeah, well, we've got our default value as an array
Oh,
up here. And what we're doing is this is for the user. And if you look at our user list, we are mapping over that user. And it has to be an array to map over it. And we want to map over multiple objects. We want to be able to create cards for as many users as we have, not just one. If we define it to an object, we wouldn't be able to map over it, and we'd only have one.
so if we put into an array, we could. So if we started with nothing inside, once we put the first one, it's gonna be index 1, index 0, and then it's gonna be the object inside. Then the other one's gonna be index 1, the object inside, that kind of deal.
Yep, exactly.
Cool. I get it. Thank you.
All right, so let's create our history real quick. I'm gonna say const history equals, man, I'm starting to run out of time. Equals use history hook, and then all I'm gonna do with that is in my handle submit function, after I set my state down here, I'm gonna say history.push.
Nice.
If I can type, it's really late. And I'm gonna push that back to our home route. That's where our list lives. And the only other thing we'd have to do here is clear the form. So we probably should do that too. So we're an app. Let's do that. We'll do it after it sets the user before it pushes, because when the history pushes, it's gonna unmount. So you want to do that right before.
Mhm.
So we're gonna say set. We're gonna set our form. We're gonna set form back to our initial form value. And that should clear our form out. All right, let's try this and see if it works. So I'm just gonna add some randomness in here. Just firing things off. Submit. Oh, but I'm getting that pesky key error. You look, I got my known languages, I got my bio, I got my role, and my name's right there in the headline. And I can click add a member, and we can add another one. DS. Let's give that those two, and we'll add that. Submit. Here's our second one, and we did that all through an API.
Nice.
Now let's fix that key error real quick, because that drives me nuts when that happens. So we're gonna go in here, and we're gonna say key equals user.id, because our API is giving us an ID. So we can use that ID to set the key. All right, so we got to that point. Let's see, let's get the validation done. We've only got 15 minutes left. We need to validate this thing. So we're done with the form, that's working. Let's start with the validation. We got yup. Let's bring yup. I'm just gonna do it right in app here. I'm gonna grab it and put it right here. I'm gonna import. You want everything from yup as yup from yup. Okay, so we have that. And now underneath my initial form, I'm gonna create my yup object. And this is gonna be like my form schema. So form schema equals a yup dot object, and that's gonna have a dot shape. This is the shape of the object. And you know what, truthfully, I'm just gonna match this like the sprint challenge tomorrow. You only have to check one thing tomorrow for validation, and that's the name field to make sure it's at least 2 characters. So we're gonna set up the validation for that. And we're gonna say name is going to be a yup dot string, because our name field is a string. We're gonna have a dot min requirement on it. And in min, we're gonna say it's gotta be at least 2 characters. If it's not, we're gonna display this message of must be at least 2 characters long. And then we're gonna have a dot required. This stupid box always. And in here it's gonna say, please enter your name. All right, and that's our form schema. It's just got 1 in it, but that's all we set up as the schema. Let's start implementing that. So the next move, I'm going to use useEffect for this. I'm going to run useEffect and watch the form state. And as the form state runs, it's going to check the validation of the form in like a constant loop. So we're going to bring in useEffect in here. And we're going to go down here inside our app. We'll call it under history above our functions. We'll say useEffect. I'll call it back. Always throw an array in here right away so you don't ever have to worry about looping. And in here, we're going to do some logic as far as checking our form. So our form schema has, it's a yup object. So yup has methods on this. And one of those is called isValid. And what isValid does is isValid checks the whole object, that object against whatever object you give it, which we're going to give it our form object. So it's going to check our whole form object against this object here. That's how it creates that validation with isValid. Now we're only checking name for a string, so it's going to see this form object and go look for the name value in that form object and check it. And that returns a promise each time it runs. So dot then is it tells you whether it's valid or not. And this truthfully is just for that disabling of the button thing that everybody likes. So we're going to check it this way to see if it's valid or not. So if it's valid, we'll make it a fat arrow. And I'm going to say set disable. And we're going to set it to not is valid. Or not valid, I'm sorry. Because when the form validates, it's true. But the button to be disabled is going to be false. So should we do this now? Do I have time? Yeah, let's set up probably real fast. So we're going to set up our disabled state real quick. We're going to say disable. Set. And this is only going to work for the name. So it will make it so we'll default it to true because we want it initially true. We're going to watch the form. And then in our form, we're going to pass that prop. That's in our form. We'll hop over here real quick to our button. And we're going to say disabled equals disable. And we have to import that in from our props chain. So now our form button should be disabled when we go to it. And it is. It's blacked out, and it should enable the moment we put 3 characters in, or 2 characters. You see how it enabled? It's doing that all through that use effect. It disables on 1, enables on 2. So that's what that does. So we have our fancy little disabled function. Now we're going to do our validate form function. So I'm going to write that up here. Const validate form. I like to write this as a separate function. It just seems to make sense for me. So no, it's going to take in an event, and this is where that reach stuff comes in. So we're going to say yup dot reach, and because we're only checking one field, we don't have to use the target name. We could just literally give it the string name here. And that way, that's the only thing that it's going to validate and check. And we're going to say dot validate. This is the part that you want to validate it against. So we're reaching for our form schema's name thing. So what this reach does, it says, okay, go get my form schema and check it against the name property in that. So check it against this. And then you're going to validate that e.target.value. So that's the value of the target coming in that we're typing in. So as we're typing, it's going to validate that name object against that target. And that's what's going to give it to you. And now we got our dot thens and dot catches. So dot then, we're going to get, this is just a callback. If this is successful, we want to, matter of fact, I didn't make the error state yet. Let's do that. We're going to carry an error state. This is where our errors are going to live. So. And, I believe I just leave that empty. Oh, let's set it to initial form. All right. So that matches our object and errors, and it's yelling at me about the unexpected colon. Okay. I knew I broke it. I didn't finish typing that out. All right, set errors. We're gonna set errors to square bracket e dot target dot name, and other side of this empty string. Oh, I got to spread it out first. Oh man, it is getting too late for this. There we go. Unbreak. Where's my semicolon at? Oh, duh. There we go. I won't be so mad now. Let me verify I did that right. Yeah, so we're spreading out errors, and this is a success, basically if it's successful. So that means if it passes validation, it's going to run this dot then. And you don't want it to display anything, so that's why we're setting that name value to an empty string. So it won't display. And then we're going to say the dot catch. Dot catch is going to take in an error from the callback, and we're going to say set errors. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to spread out errors. And we're going to say e.target.name. And we're going to set that value to err.errors. And why is that lit up on me? Oh, there's a semicolon there. Go away. All right, so that should set it to our errors. Now we want to display that error somewhere, right? So let's display it right at the bottom of our form. Do I want to display it at the bottom of the form or above the form?
You can make a div after the submit.
Yeah, I got to pass it in a form though. So no big deal. No biggie. All right. Owie. Okay. Let's just pass errors in and we'll do that. We'll send it right into the form. All right, let's go into our form. We're going to create it at the bottom of the form. We'll put it right down here. Should I do it inside the form? Actually, I could do it at the top right between it. That'd probably be better. This path form, this switch, this navigation. Yeah, let's do that. We're just going to put it right here. We're going to have a div, or we're going to have JSX. And we're going to say errors.name.length, because errors.name is actually an array. And we're going to check to see if it's greater than 0. And if it is, then we're going to display a p tag with inside that p tag is going to be the errors.name. It's not an array, I'm sorry, it's a string. So it's picking up a string. And we got it set to default that empty quotes, that's 0. That means it's not going to display. But the moment that populates, it'll display the error. So if that's the case, we should be able to check this now. And I type in 1, back up. I might not get my errors. Let's see, errors is not populating yet. Oh, I know why. I never called my my function. So in our handle change function, we have a validate form. See, I'm not using it yet. In our handle change, we want to call that at the bottom. I say validate form and give it the event. Now it should work. Oh, there it is. Go to, it goes away. You see how that works?
Cool.
Any questions on that?
So we did all the validate form function just to get the error that we put on the on the schema,
Yeah.
and after that we just send it to the JSX to render it on the page.
Yep. Only if it's defined. Basically, if it's if the string is greater than 0, it will display. So that's pretty much the sprint challenge other than Cypress.
Are we doing, do we have to do the tests on Cypress for it?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. 3 tests you're gonna have to do. You're gonna have to write a test that checks to make sure you can type in the name field. You write a test that makes sure you can check at least 2 checkboxes, and then you're gonna write a test that makes sure you can hit the submit button of the form.
Cool.
Which if you guys want to stick around, I might do that. I think we might have enough time to run some Cypress on this real quick.
Like, I kind of feel bad for you that you had to type everything. I was going nuts.
Oh, but doing all this?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. I just wanted to give you guys a feel, and this way tends to be a lot shorter than like the original way you learned in class, with the helper functions upon helper functions. So it might save you guys some time tomorrow.
I unfortunately have to get going, but Chris, I want to thank you very much, and I look forward to looking at this recording tomorrow morning to help out with the sprint.
Cool. All right, man. Yeah, I'll get it posted by the morning. I think I'm
Thank
gonna
you
knock out
so
some
very much.
Cypress real quick too. So
All right,
Alrighty, man.
you guys have a good night.
All right,
So
have a good night.
if it's like for the required support hours, we're kind of finished with that now.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I think I got Cypress pretty good. So.
Okay. Well, if everybody
All
wants
right,
to go, I won't do it. It's okay.
No, it's whatever. Thank you so much, Chris.
All right, no problem, man.
All right.
Chris, if you're willing to do it, I'll stick around.
Yeah, I'll knock it out real quick. Let's do this. Yeah, I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna change my script. I've got Cypress installed already. I'm gonna verify that. Of course, I didn't put it as a dev dependency. I put it in as a regular one, but so be it.
What's the difference? Can you remind me of that?
Dev dependencies, when you run the build command, like when you actually deploy this to like Netlify or something, it won't install those on the deployment.
And if we have like a normal dependencies,
It'll install it. So yeah, like if I deployed this to Netlify, when Netlify ran its build command and built everything up, it would actually install Cypress in the server.
Remind me what Netlify is.
Netlify is like a deployment site to deploy your applications to the web. So when we get done building this, rather than localhost, we can go to Netlify, deploy it off of GitHub. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to have it as a dev dependency, so it doesn't load that up.
Yeah, I mean it won't ever run Cypress while it's deployed, but it's extra bloatware that doesn't need to be there.
Cool.
If that makes sense. So I'm gonna make this Cypress run. I'm modifying my test script just so it runs Cypress.
Oh, let me see again what you did.
Right here, where it says test in the scripts.
Yeah. What was there before?
It said React scripts, or this is supposed to be Cypress open, I'm sorry. It said React scripts test, and I erased it to say Cypress open.
So that's like doing npm.
Yeah, so now all I should have to do is type in npm test, and it should run Cypress.
I don't get it how that works. Like you just type the name of the file and say open and open. I don't get it.
Yeah, so basically npm directly correlates with this package JSON. And when I give it an npm test, that automatically knows it's a script. So it looks through these scripts to see what matches test. And it goes test. And it says, oh, I'm supposed to run Cypress open. So it runs the Cypress open command. The first one defines like the package. So like you see up here where it says React scripts, that's defining this React scripts package. And then whatever method that package might have, like this React script has a build method, it has a start method. You know, the start is what we're using to display our app. This Cypress has an open.
Okay, I didn't. Oh, cool. Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, got it. Yeah. All right. So we have Cypress up and running, so it's ready to go. We're gonna kind of kick this off to the side here for a minute. Let's go write a test. You go into integration. They have the examples. We don't want the examples. We're gonna make our own file,
Mhm.
and we'll call it. Of course, it went into the lower one. I hate that. We'll call this user dot spec dot js, and okay, it did make it to that side. Cool. So
What
this
does
is
spec means?
what's that?
What does spec means?
It's just another way React defines a test. It's the same thing as typing test. I think the reason we're using spec in here is I believe that is specifically what Cypress identifies it with. But like when you go to use like React testing library or even Jest in general, it picks up whether
Yes.
you type it in as spec or test and runs it as a test file.
Okay.
So we're gonna test our Cypress lakes here a little bit. Let's see. We'll start off with describe. And we're going to describe this as testing support app. And that gets a callback function as a second parameter. And this is what's going to hold all of our tests. And they're normally defined with the word it for Cypress.
Can we also activate the IntelliSense? So you could put like a reference.
I tried that earlier. I never got it to work on mine. Like where you
But
go up to the top here and put reference.
yeah. Oh, you need 3 slashes. Or 3, yeah. I'll comment it out. On the comments, you'll find it.
Yeah, reference, type. I tried this before and it's Cypress.
Capitalize.
Capitalize Cypress.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why it didn't work. See, it just it loses its mind when I do it. Yeah, what kind of error? Invalid reference directive syntax.
Is that the link thing?
No, it just for some reason it loses its mind every time I do it.
Try to put it. Try to act on it and see what happens. CW.
Psi, yeah, it's still.
Bro, how can it not work for you? Like I just did it and it works.
It never has for me. I tried that like 4 months ago when we went through Cypress and I couldn't get it to work.
It's so weird. Well, types.
Actually, I think it just picked it up there because it didn't light up red. Side dot visit. So this is going to take us to our site.
But you're missing something. You're supposed to be types, not type. Maybe
Oh,
that's it.
types. Oh, let's try it. Oh, I think that was it.
Try it.
Yeah, I just did. I saved it, but it's still lit up as a.
Might be link.
Oh, I think it's working though. Let's see what happens. Localhost 3000.
That's so cool.
So we're gonna visit that. So we got that running. We got our first thing going. Let's go ahead and run this.
Okay.
Here it comes.
It's the magic.
Cypress error. Cannot call site. Oh yeah, I know. I'm sorry. My bad. I forgot the it.
Your mind is fried. I could tell already.
Yeah. Visit app. All right, let's grab this, bring it up here. Now it'll work. Why am I not running on 3000? I am running on 3000. Oh, localhost. Try that.
Did we do it?
Oh, I bet I know what it is.
npm start.
I gotta get this back to the base route.
Go for it. That's really.
Site up visit localhost 3000. Why is it not? Why is it not like that? What am I doing wrong?
Maybe not HTTPS, just HTTP.
That might be it. Actually, yeah, I think you're right.
Yes.
All
Okay.
right. Yeah. Okay. So this is this doesn't really qualify as a test, but this gets you to your route. So the first test we're gonna write is actually, you know what? We're not gonna visit localhost 3000. We're testing our form. So we're gonna go to form.
Alright.
So now we're sitting on our form, and the first thing we're gonna test that name field to see if we can type in there. So we'll say it types in name field. We'll call that back. And we'll say sci dot, we're gonna get that. Sci dot, we'll do it by contains. Actually, no, that's a name, that's an input field, okay. For me, for an input field, I like to give it an ID whenever I test it. So I'm gonna say ID equals name. Truthfully, I only ever use my IDs just for testing. So sci.contain or sci.get, and we're gonna get a CSS selector of a # name. So now it should grab that. And I think, are we overrunning here a little bit? Yeah, there we go.
We'll grab
So
them all by doing like by input and brackets and then name, first name, last name, or names we gave them.
yeah. Everybody's different. There's so many different ways to do it. I like using the IDs for some reason. I don't know. I think it's because when I did a lot of the React testing stuff, I used the data test ID field quite a bit, because React testing library, you can only grab things by text, by ARIA label, and by ID. I believe it's only 3 ways you can grab it. So it's an old habit.
Go for it. Go for it. I love seeing different ways.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so we're gonna do dot type. We're gonna type in Chris. Let's see if that works. I typed in Chris. Cool. Oh. So the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna verify that it's there. Dot should. I'm doing this all off of memory too. I'm really surprised.
Yeah.
Have, I believe it's value Chris. And we're good. Test 1 done. 2 more to go. All right. The other time is test to check to see if the checkboxes are checked. Let's see here. It
To select.
checks checkboxes.
You can use get and should.
Yeah, I use get and should there.
Yeah. And then should.
Actually, it's not working. I'm still lit up with this. Even with that up there. I don't know.
It goes away.
All right, so in this one, I'm going to do a sci. Let me go add my IDs, old habit. So, form, put type, this is going to be an ID equal to JavaScript. This one's going to have an ID equal to Python. Let's see, ID equals CSS. All right, so I got all my IDs in there. I can go grab them. So sci.get, and we're gonna get the ID of JavaScript. And then when we get it, we're gonna do a dot check. then a dot should. I believe this is B dot checked. And it passes. So I just verified a checkbox works and it checks. So we can
Huh.
verify all of
That's-
them.
What about V enable?
I think it's because it has a checked field. I don't know about enable. We could try it. Let me set a couple of these up. Python.
I need to look that up. I just don't know this library that well.
Yeah, me neither. I've only used it with you guys twice. In labs, they don't let us use it because they say it's not enterprise.
What?
Yeah. They make you use unit tests. Yeah, enabled works too.
And what's the point?
It looks flashy at the end. Like when you're done writing all your unit test stuff, you can put a Cypress end-to-end test out there and say, hey, look, test the app, but you're never going to do it like on source control or use branch protection or anything with Cypress. It's more of an introduction to testing. It's just getting that flavor, kind of like, that taste in your mouth for when you get to the deeper testing coming up.
What's the deeper testing coming on?
React testing library and Jest for the back end.
So React testing library.
All right.
And you said Node, something about Jest.
Yeah, Jest, which React testing library uses Jest as well, but they work in kind of like in sync. Where when you get into Node, you're just going to use straight up Jest, nothing else.
And what about are they more complicated to get into? And this is like lighter, easier.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot more in depth.
Okay. Well, it could have depth, but easy to do, hard to master.
Yeah. And Cypress is cool because you can, you see it working on the browser. You can watch it happen in front of you visually. That's kind of a neat thing.
All right. You said it now. You said everything I needed to know. Thank you.
No problem. Sci.contains, and I'm going to use contains in here for submit because I only have one submit button there. I'm just going to go grab that and I'm going to click that. And we're going to see if it submits.
Let's go for it.
Oh, it didn't like something.
So we need to select a row.
Expect to define content, submit, and never found my submit button. That's why I use IDs. So I'm gonna go into form, my button. Oh, I didn't use a capital S, that's why. I'll find it now. I forgot it's by text, not by ID. And there it went. There you go. That's MVP for the sprint now. There's my 3 tests.
Thank you.
So I hope you guys followed that. I hope you have fun. I'm sorry it turned into a rush job, but it was quite a bit.
That was a good review. I don't have to review
It was
it.
very helpful.
No problem.